Hello guys and girls, and welcome to today's video. The purpose of this video is to give you just a little bit of extra help and support in rewriting the body paragraph that we took a look at last week. So thank you for choosing to watch this video. I appreciate the fact that you are taking the extra support that I'm offering. You do need to make sure that you have an extra sheet of paper and a pencil to write your paragraph rewrite on, and then when you get done with this video and you finish up your paragraph, you will staple all of this together and put it on the podium at the front of the room. First thing we're going to do before we get started with the rewrite is to take a look back at the passage. So we're going to read this together. You can follow along with me here on the screen, or you can follow along on your copy of the text. Should school start later? Experts say a later schedule could be good for your health. Your phone shrieks. Confused and groggy, you open your eyes. Surely it isn't time to get up already. You tap snooze and sink back into dreamland until your dad knocks on the door. Wake up, he calls. The bus will be here in 10 minutes. You groan. 5 more minutes. Please, please, please. If this sounds familiar, you aren't alone. Before the pandemic, nearly 70% of teens weren't getting enough sleep. During COVID, things were different. Many teens were able to sleep in because remote classes started later, didn't require a commute, or gave students flexibility in their schedules. But now that in-person school has resumed, teens across America are once again battling their alarms, and a debate has realigned. Should school start later? The science of sleep. In the U.S., the average start time for middle and high school is a few minutes before 8 a.m. It hasn't always been this way, though. A century ago, most schools started around 9 a.m. Then, in the 1970s, districts began shifting to earlier schedules for teens, with elementary age kids starting later. This saved districts money because it reduced the number of buses needed. When start times are staggered, the same buses can make multiple trips. Otherwise, you need enough buses to transport all elementary, middle, and high school students at once. Today, we know much more about teens and the science of sleep. Scientists now understand that adolescents experience something called phase delay. Here's how it works. At night, our bodies release a hormone called melatonin that makes us sleepy. Around middle school, this melatonin release gets pushed back by 1 or 2 hours. As a result, many teens have a hard time falling asleep before 11 p.m. If you have to be at school by 8 a.m., it can be tough, if not impossible, to get the 8 to 10 hours of sleep you need to be healthy. And that's a problem. If teens aren't getting enough sleep, it's going to impact every aspect of their life, says Dr. Lisa Meltzler, a sleep psychologist. Indeed, being exhausted can make you cranky and sad. It can make it harder to concentrate, sit still, and learn. And it can weaken your immune system and impede your ability to make good decisions. Given how critical sleep is to your well-being, it's no surprise many experts recommend that middle and high schools start no earlier than 8:30 a.m. Benefits and drawbacks. In 2017, Cherry Creek School District in Colorado pushed back start times for its middle and high schools. Since then, students have said they are less sleepy during the school day and participate more in first period. Meltzler, who led the study of Cherry Creek students, found that kids were sleeping more and they stopped falling asleep doing their homework. Over the past few years, hundreds of other schools have also experimented with later start times. The results have been promising, with students feeling more alert and fewer incidents of tardiness. If later start times are good for teens, why doesn't everyone make the switch? Unfortunately, it's not so simple. For one thing, starting later means ending later, which leaves less time for after-school activities like sports, dance, and music. For outdoor activities, this is especially problematic during the winter when daylight hours are limited. Later dismissal times could also cut into after-school jobs and create scheduling conflicts for families. In Cherry Creek, some families say they have less time in the evening for homework and dinner. Transportation is another obstacle. Later start times could require some districts to invest in additional buses and drivers, which can be costly, and many parents might not be able to drive their kids to school before work. Of course, early start times aren't the only reason that teens are exhausted. Many things can get in the way of a good night's sleep, such as caffeine, stress, overscheduling, and too much screen time. Still, the benefits of later start times are compelling. So, what do you think? Should more schools start later? Okay, so for this assignment, you guys were tasked with writing a body paragraph We know that a body paragraph consists of a transition word, a topic sentence, two E1s, two E2s, and a concluding sentence. In the time that we have left in this video today, we're going to write about half of the paragraph together, and then when the video is over, you're going to be responsible for writing the second half of the paragraph on your own. Now, the nice thing about this assignment is I've actually given you the topic sentence. It says, first, LaRue County Schools should start later because it would allow students to get more sleep. Meaning, you don't have to worry about the topic sentence, right? It's already there for you. What you do need to pay attention to is what I've told you this topic sentence needs to focus on, and that is the fact that it's a good idea for school to start later because it's going to allow students to get more sleep. So all of the evidence and all of the explanations that you provide in this paragraph need to support the fact that this is a good idea because of more sleep. So as you're going back to the text and you are looking for evidence, a great place to start would be in this section that says the science of sleep. There is lots of really good evidence in this section of the text about how getting more sleep is really good for young people. So any evidence that you find in this section of the text is probably going to be a good place to start. Now again, I'm going to walk through the first part of this ERQ with you, so I've already highlighted a piece of evidence that I feel really strongly supports our topic sentence. It's right here. It says, indeed, being exhausted can make you cranky and sad. It can make it harder to concentrate, sit still, and learn. So remember, when we're writing a body paragraph, right after our transition word and our topic sentence, our transition word is first, our topic sentence is LaRue County Schools should start later because it would allow students to get more sleep. Our next step is an E1, which is our evidence. Our evidence should always start with a good sentence starter like, the text says. That's the simplest, that's the easiest, so that's a good one to use. Then you're going to give some quotation marks because that helps to show that this is not our words, this is the author's words. And then you are citing that evidence exactly as it was stated in the text. Indeed, comma, being exhausted can make you cranky and sad. It can make it harder to concentrate, sit still, and learn. And then I have a period and I have closing quotation marks. One thing that I noticed some people were doing as they were writing these body paragraphs is they were citing way too much evidence. I want you to notice that this E1 is only 2 sentences long, and your E1s really shouldn't be any longer than that. If you're doing more than two sentences for your evidence, you've probably cited too much. This would be a good place to go ahead and maybe pause the video and copy your E1, and then when you're ready, you can hit play again and we'll move on to the E2. So anytime we have an E1, anytime we cite evidence, it needs to be followed with an E2, which is our explanation. The explanation is where you get to explain in your own words, how does this evidence prove that LaRue County Schools should start later? And again, how does it prove that it's going to allow students to get more sleep? And why is getting more sleep a good thing? A great way to start your E2s is by using this sentence starter. This evidence proves. That's a great place to start. So that's where I started. I said this evidence proves that tired students will not be successful in the classroom. If we think about it, they're not going to be successful because this says that if they're not getting enough sleep, they can't concentrate, they can't sit still, and they can't learn. Remember, our E2s should be at least 2 sentences. I've written 3 sentences here, but 2 sentences is great as well. So this evidence proves that tired students will not be successful in the classroom. In fact, here's another great sentence starter to use with your E2s. It's always a good idea to use an if-then statement. So if blank happens, then what's going to be the result? If children are suffering from a lack of sleep, meaning if they can't get enough sleep, then they may not be able to focus on school at all. Again, that ties right back to the evidence that I cited because it says that if you don't get enough sleep, you can't concentrate, you can't sit still, you can't learn. So I'm just reinforcing that. If children aren't getting enough sleep, if they're suffering from a lack of sleep, then they may not be able to focus on school at all. And then I wanted to take it one step further and explain why later start times would be a good thing and how it would help to get rid of this problem of a lack of concentration. So I said later start times would eliminate this problem, the problem being lack of sleep, by helping students come to school well rested and ready to learn. So again, our E2 should be at least 2 sentences. I wrote 3 here because I just felt like I needed one more sentence to fully explain my ideas. Okay, you will need to copy my E2, starting with this evidence proves and ending with ready to learn. And then this paragraph's not done yet because our body paragraph should have 2 E1s and 2 E2s as well as a concluding sentence. So I'm going to give you some sentence starters to help you out here. Remember, after your first E1 and E2, you should have an internal transition. I personally like to use something like furthermore or additionally. And then we're going to go right into another piece of evidence. So you can put the text says or the author states, and you will need to go back up here under the section Science of Sleep and find another piece of evidence that talks about how if we start later, students are going to get more sleep and that's going to benefit them. After you cite your evidence, make sure you put your closing quotation marks at the end. I would encourage you to use a sentence starter such as this evidence shows, and then explain to me, how does this evidence prove that starting later is going to be good for students? Remember, after that first sentence, you need another sentence for your E2 because we always want our E2s to be at least 2 sentences. So you could use an if-then statement, or another option would be something like a not only but also statement. You could try that. Or another option could be something along the lines of this evidence also shows or also proves blank. You can fill in the blank there. Again, guys, you don't have to do all of these, but at least one more sentence. And then for your concluding sentence, you could end with a question, or you could say something like clearly blank, and bring it back to your topic sentence. Clearly, LaRue County Schools should start later, or clearly getting more sleep is going to benefit students. Okay, hopefully you found this video helpful. Go ahead and finish writing the rest of your body paragraph. Like I said at the beginning, make sure you staple everything together and put it on the podium when you're finished.